Okay, Corona day 2 in Jerusalem. Um, Today I started teaching, and we're using this Zoom platform. We invited our first year students, Daniel Feldman and I, and we all got together insofar that it's possible to get together. And we started out with giving the students an opportunity to write in the chat window where they were, what room in the house they were in, what city they were in. And one of the students chimed in, wrote, "The world is coming to an end," which was a inauspicious way of thinking about the beginning of the semester. But it really does, it gets to the heart of what teaching means at this time. Um, I think there's a kind of illusion that instructors have that somehow we're to be expected to be in some kind of neutral place outside of what's happening. And in fact, that's not what's actually happening. We're in the same place and we're experiencing the same uncertainty. And in many cases, the same anxiety, and the ability actually to express that to students in whatever context is very, very important, because through that expression, there's a kind of there's trust that's built up. And I think teaching now is really about community building. And I said this to our students this morning, that we are in the position now, thankfully, to continue our life of the mind. And we can do that collectively. And in doing that collectively, we really are part of this community, which I think all of us so desperately need. And related to that, not only this idea of leading in such a way as to try to create a community, but also to use the situation to allow for the deepest kind of learning possible. I started out with the apologetics today. Well, um, why would we study Milton or literature in this time of crisis? And then I kind of corrected it to, oh, well, Milton really is relevant in this time of crisis. And then I finally got it right. And getting it right is saying that we need Milton in this time of crisis, that Milton is writing for us at this moment. I am teaching a Milton seminar. And you could say that about any number of writers. Milton maybe more strikingly, because he lived through plague, blindness, historical loss, historical trauma, personal loss. His life was filled with loss. His poem, his most famous poem, Paradise Lost, is not named Paradise Lost for nothing. It's about this experience of loss. And now I'm speaking not only to my students, but any of us who have the ability or capacity to connect with literary texts, to connect with texts from your tradition, to be engaged by them. This is the time. And it's the time because we get to put away all that crap about, being historical or critical readers, or, the kinds of reading that are prominent in the academy still, I think, today, where readers know way, way more than the authors. Milton, Shakespeare, name them, Jane Austen, all of these authors have ways of addressing us today. And that's not just a form of anachronism. It's actually a belief that we can go back to the texts, hypothesize about the intentions of those texts based upon evidence. I mean, I'm being careful here. We don't go into the brain of the writer, but we can hypothesize that intention, and we do that with the most generosity possible, because the assumption is that authors of this stature are writing and taking into account an enormous amount of complexity. And how do I know this? Because I know this, because I read writers like this, and what that assumption actually leads to the acknowledgement that this is in fact true. And the second part of that is that we can interpret those texts in such a way that they become meaningful to us. I didn't want to say relevant, but meaningful. What do I mean by that? That they can help us think about questions of loss, of history, of God, of time, of all of these things that now are coming to the fore in our lives. We no longer have to tweet this, the angry theodicy tweets, meaning, how can God exist if X, Y, and Z? And I'm not making an apology for God now, and I wouldn't have the chutzpah to do it in 2 minutes. But there's also the other side of just saying, well, there's no real genuine argument for the divine, because look, the world is so full of suffering. I mean, Milton is an example of that. So the more general play is, it's really about making yourself present. Make yourself present to your family, make yourself present to your students, make yourself present to rediscover reading, rediscover what it means to be addressed by a text and to be changed by it. So that's how it looks here from Jerusalem, Corona, day 2.